Good afternoon. It is November the 7th, 2016, and I'm going to do a special video over the incoming pattern change that is expected to occur around mid to late November. Right now, we are still in the beginning of November, but we are easing our way into the middle of the month, and that means that we are getting closer to that pattern change. This is not a matter of if the pattern change occurs, this is a matter of when. I know the pattern is going to flip at some point. I've been forecasting this for over a month now, and it is now expected to occur around mid to late November. Remember, in my last weekly weather briefings, I've been really optimistic about this change. I knew it was going to happen, but I was optimistic about the timing of it. When was it going to happen? I ended up sticking with the month of November. It was going to happen sometime in the month of November, but I wasn't just sure when. I didn't want to, and I know some of you were like, how come you weren't very specific about it? Um, I was specific in the matter that the month was going to be November, but would you have rather me told you that it was going to be the beginning of November and then it still be warm then, or just tell you November and then you know that sometime in that month there's going to be a flip? That part of the forecast is correct, but my odds were favoring not to be correct if I started to get specific because there was no room to be specific on what time of the month this was going to occur because the models weren't picking up on it a couple of weeks ago and the pattern was favoring it, but the models weren't. The pattern's been favoring this for the last 2 or 3 months, but it hasn't been occurring. Finally, we are starting to see the pattern and the models both pick up on this incoming flip. And these are the month to date temperatures that you see on your screen right there. And this is only the seventh day of the month. This will all kind of average out towards the end, and you won't be seeing so many reds and so many dark colors right there showing how warm the temperatures have been lately. You will begin to see more blue, I think, showing up along the eastern half of the country now. The first 7 days have been so far above average that I don't know if it's going to be I don't know if once the flip happens, I don't know if the last week or so of November are going to be cold enough to make these reds get replaced with blues. I think that most of the month is going to be above normal in the temperature department, but up into that flip, it will be above normal with a few below normal days. But when that flip occurs, it's there and afterwards that we're going to see sustained cold. And I believe, and I'm very confident in that, around 80% confidence in there being sustained cold around Thanksgiving and through the end of November because the pattern would favor that, and the models are continuing to show that, and the models have been consistent the last couple of days. In fact, the last week or so on showing that sustained code once we get towards the 19th or the 20th of November and then onward. It looks like there's going to be a cold front coming through sometime between the 17th and the 22nd. That's about a 5-day period, so it's not very specific, but it is a time frame that I believe a cold front will be entering the picture on. When it enters the picture, temperatures you can expect to drop dramatically right afterwards. We might see a brief warm up ahead of the cold front, but that's normal. What's not normal is this sustained warmth that we've been getting used to and getting spoiled with most of October and now the beginning of November. But it looks like that flip is coming, so don't get used to the sustained warmth anymore. Start to think more fall like temperatures and then eventually sustained cold. Fall only lasted about 2 weeks this year, and this is the first week of it. Next week will be the second week. By the third week of November, we're talking about that sustained cold right around the flip time frame, and that is going to be when winter arrives. I believe that winter will be arriving around the end of November into the beginning of December this year. I don't think we're going to have to wait till January like we did last year to see any snow on the ground or any cold in the atmosphere. I think we will be seeing that right before our eyes here in the very next couple of weeks as we head into Thanksgiving. Many areas in the northern tier of the United States might get a white Thanksgiving this year if we can get a storm system to come through there. There will be cold air waiting for it, but it's the matter of fact if a storm system forms. If a storm system forms or a couple of them and they're strong enough, then yes, we could have some areas that see a white Thanksgiving this year. But some areas already that's normal for them to see that, and but most areas that should be seeing snow on the ground in the northern parts of the United States have not been seeing that. The Northeast and New England areas, they've been getting enough snow to right around average right now, in parts of the mountains and things like that. But it's these areas such as Minnesota, North Dakota, um, Wisconsin, those areas that should be starting to see those snowflakes flying have not been seeing it yet. So we're going to have to monitor that. These are, like I said, the month-to-date temperature is very warm right now, but expect this to start to get replaced really in the eastern part of the country. I expect this central area of color to go off towards the northwest a little bit, and I think that we'll see most of our sustained warmth right around here by the end of the month, and the southwest United States will be warming up as well. So expect more of this to be to be moving and slowly migrating towards the western coast of the United States, eastern coast, and the I would say really around the uh, all the way. If you were to draw a line right through the middle of the United States and eastward, we're going to start seeing more of that cold and snow, maybe adding in North Dakota, South Dakota as well, as we head into the end of the month. So that is that. Let's move into what the GFS is saying. This is we've looked at what we've seen so far, the observations, but now we're going to start looking at what the models are picking up on. The models are showing that we stay in that ridge of high pressure as we head through the November 8th time frame. You can tell we get a trough coming in around Wednesday of this week, a very brief one. It's only going to be brief, but even when this ridge comes back in, it's not going to be very strong. So temperatures between Wednesday and Friday won't be warming up a whole lot from where they will be when that weak trough moves through on Wednesday. We see a big cool down coming through on Saturday, but it's really this time frame right here that I want to start getting into. The GFS, I want you to notice something. We have more of a zonal flow right here from west to east. But I want you to notice how we have a trough developing underneath this area of ridging right here, and then we have a trough coming in over the north. Watch how these two will connect. When these two connect, expect a pretty big cool down for our region as we head into the 16th. This is the 16th time frame. I think the GFS is being a little bit too quick on the system. That's why I'm going with anywhere between the 17th and the 22nd time frame. I think it's being a little bit too quick with this cool down. I think we'll have to wait at least a day or two after the 16th before we begin to see that cool air actually making its way in. Notice how we get a trough right there, and this is supporting a storm system as well. This is that low pressure, that cold front that I'm talking about, that the GFS is thinking is going to happen. And then we see a brief ridge once again, but like I said, very brief, because what it's doing is it's warming up right ahead of another storm system. I know there's going to be that there was another low that formed right there because of how close these isobars are together, and we see how this is oriented. This red dotted line, when it's oriented like that, and you get that little wedge in the atmosphere, then you know that there's probably going to be a low pressure there if it's not showing up on the maps yet. And then we watch that low pressure dissipate, and we begin to see at first we had one area of low pressure, and it was strengthening, and then you see how you get that wedge right there. That's when I started to think, well, there's going to be another low pressure there, and there it is. Those two can't really sit there long enough on the cold front. One of them is going to take over, and it happens to be the one on the north, and it begins to, what the GFS thinks, produce snow for areas that need the snow, that areas that got more snow in October than they have the last 7 days in November. So those areas up there, this is the area that I'm talking about right now in the northern plains and south central Canada. Those are the areas that have not been seeing hardly any snow this winter. We've been seeing more snow south of there, southeast of there, than we have in that area. So a little odd, but that is something that's very important to our weather, because if we can't get a good base of snow here, then that means that there's not going to be a lot of cold air there. Where does most of our cold air come from? It comes from this area, the area that has hardly any snow there right now. But we have to get some good ground zero for snow there before we begin to see some cold moving into our area, at least some really good cold. We can't get really good cold air unless if it's not coming from a good source. Our source is the cold snowpack up here, which we don't have right now. You can tell beforehand. This would be going out towards next Thursday. It's showing hardly any snowfall there, none. And when you see none like that, then where's our cold air going to come from? It's going to come from the snow up here, but once it hits that blank snow, it's going to warm up that area of cold air that's diving southward. By the time it gets to our region, it's still cold air, but it's not as cold as it should be. If it were coming down from that area, it should be colder because there should be a good source up there to give it its cold character. So I don't know if that really made sense, but point is we have to get, in order to get some really sustained cold air, it needs to be coming from a cold source, and right now our cold source is not cold. We see another trough developing. This is the one that I'm talking about around the 19th, and I want you to watch how the ridge stays in the west and the trough just continues to dig. We see another trough underneath. That is another storm system, and notice how the ridge is getting pumped up into the west, and we see very, very cold air diving southward around the 22nd of November. And the GFS has been showing. I mean, it's not showing consistently, but it's been showing it the last several model runs. How there's possibly going to be a snowstorm somewhere in the central or United States or the Midwest around or right before Thanksgiving. I think it's being a little bit too fast with it. I think if we see any snow in these areas, it's going to be, for one, probably further north, and two, a little bit later on, maybe right around Thanksgiving or just right after Thanksgiving would probably be a better time frame to put that on, because this is not the only run of the GFS that has been showing a snowstorm for somewhere in the central United States around the Thanksgiving time frame. So it's something to watch. Every now and then it tries to bring snow into our region, but this is a pretty substantial low. This is as far as the GFS goes out, so I can't show you further on how it goes, but the trends on that one were from northwest to southeast. So if this were to continue, it would probably end up here would be your warm front. It would probably end up continuing to move south and take a southerly storm track, or it could just all of a sudden change and go northeast, which would probably be more favorable for this time of the year. You see more of those southwest to northeast tracks. We towards the middle and end of winter is when we start to see those southerly tracks become more potent, and then they ride up along the eastern seaboard. But you never know. It's something to watch because it's not like the GFS just has no snowstorm and then it just pops up one. This is probably the third or fourth time that it has showed this. Um, so it's starting to kind of be becoming something that I need to monitor as we go throughout the next several weeks. Now, this is what the European is thinking. European is another great model. I tend to trust it more than I do the GFS because of its accuracy rate. But the European is also showing cold air diving in towards the 17th. That would be right after that cold front comes through, and you can see that northwest flow. This is as far out as the European goes, so it too is showing some cold air also. Here is your current sea surface temperature anomalies. Expect the PDO to begin to strengthen. This is one of those things where I said the pattern lately has been favoring a very cold pattern, but we haven't been getting it, and now the models are beginning to pick on it. Now we have a pattern that favors it, and we have the models that are picking up on the cold air around the time of Thanksgiving for that flip. There is a lot of warm temperatures right under the surface that this is not picking up on. Those temperatures, those warm temperatures will upwell towards the surface. I mentioned this in my winter weather forecast, which any of you watching should go check out, that I posted on my YouTube channel a couple days ago. This is there is going to be a lot more red showing up here lately, showing up here pretty soon, but it's going to take some while to do so. And when it does, expect a very big ridge to be getting pumped up into Canada. That leads me into another thing, and that is that a lot of the things that have been driving our weather is that we have had a trough that has been right over Alaska lately, and that trough is finally looking to start to break down as we head into. You can tell it's not as potent as what it used to be. It's not as potent as that. By the time we head into the around the Thanksgiving time period, you notice how it begins to break down. We begin to see more ridging, and we're trying to see those higher height anomalies pushing into the Alaskan coast. That would also warm the temperatures here, which would in turn favor colder than normal. So a flip is coming. Like I said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and I feel confident that it will be right around Thanksgiving. So expect this warm weather to not be lasting much more longer.